So subject code CS8392, subject name object oriented programming. It consists of 5 units. First unit, we are going to talk about completely on what is our object oriented programming, why it was invented, what are all the drawbacks observed in structured programming or procedure oriented programming, what could be the history of Java, what are all the features of Java, and what about a variable, constant, types of data types available in Java, types of operators available in Java, types of control structures available in Java, what about arrays, what about packages, what is the purpose of a Java doc tool. So these are all the things will be covered in Unit 1. Unit 2 will talk about completely on inheritance and polymorphism. So Unit 3 will talk about, yes,
recording agala.
It's the recording. Ma'am, screen recording பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கேன் மேம் நானு.
இல்ல அந்த ரெக்கார்டிங் ஆப்ஷன் இருக்குல அத போடுங்க. அது கூகுள் கிளாஸ் ரூம்க்கு போயிடுது. யாருக்கு உங்களுக்கு வேற ஒருத்தங்க? நான் பண்றேன். பண்ணுங்கப்பா. அவங்க கிளாஸ் நடத்துறாங்க. சரி ஓகே. சாப்பிடுப்பா. நான் அது கிளாஸ் ரூம் போயிடுறேன்.
So regarding Unit 3, we will be working with polymorphism. Abstraction, the extended versions of polymorphism, abstraction, and the derived features of exception handling. And Unit 4, we are going to work with generic programming. So I think people who are familiar with the C++, they know that about templates. The same type of things will come over there. Collections in Java, nothing but data structure implementations in Java that we will be seeing over on the chapter in a detailed fashion. Fifth unit that we are going to work completely on GUI in Java, that is Abstract Windowing Toolkit, AWT and Swing. How can we design graphical user components for the web environment? So this could be the entire syllabus of your 5 units in Java. Second thing, students who are going to be ready to pursue their profile or career in software companies, this subject could be an important one for you. Please remember that, because the validity of Java will be there till the end of the earth. Okay, so like other programming languages, the diminishing nature is very, very less compared to other environment, right? Even though the coding complexity is average in Java, it's not like your Python or C and C++. Its coding complexity is average. You have to put some effort to write programs. That's what the term I am using. Coding complexity is average. But once you prepare to work on that, you could be able to write very easily. Such a easy one, because it was being featured as object-oriented content. If you want to use any built-in contents, it is enough to create an object. Once you create the object, you can access all the methods available in the class. So that much easier it is. That's what the secondary thing that I want to convey on this. So learning this language is not waste for you at any case. If you want to be a good programmer, if you want to, still you have not learned programming, don't worry about that. You take this one as your inception or starting point and start learning. Okay, so that's such a easier one. A very good example is, see, Android phones are in your hands, right? So Android OS have occupied all of our houses. So ultimately, the entire Android was developed in Java only. So I think there is no way of replacing Android with some other thing. Might be if it happens, means it will take some more 15 years. Okay, so that much time it will take, because most of the products are started addicting for that. So that's the flavor of Java is. So learning Java, profiling in Java, doing projects in Java, getting a job based on Java is completely an easy task when you are going to be a pakka and prepared one on it. That's all. Okay. So remembering syntaxes, doing everything is part A. Writing the mathematics for your program is part B. That's all. So when you are going to combine A plus B, you are going to be a complete programmer. So that's the idea behind this. So in the initial stage of programming, how it will be classified? It could be imperative and declarative. There are two ways. What is imperative and what is declarative? Okay. So declarative represents, first we will talk about declarative. It will be like completely on a grammatical English. Okay. A grammatical English. These declarative things are purely used for, I think, you will be able to see this logical programming and functional programming. So these languages, what they have mentioned, Prolog, Haskell, Erlang, these programming languages that I could able to write a program directly for an AI application, an artificial intelligence application. If we want to write, I could able to write using some simple English, right? But when you are coming for imperative, set of functionalities will be available as a complete API. Okay, so you have to call that API and call that method, and you need to work. Okay, so that could be the main idea behind imperative and declarative. Even in imperative, you are having two classifications: procedural and object oriented. So procedural means you have to do in a proper way. You should not skip something. But in object oriented, it is customized. You can skip between something and you can organize on your own way. That is what object oriented. You can customize it on your own way. When you are coming for declarative logic, no need to worry about other procedures. Simply concentrate on logic. If you want to add A plus B, just convey that you are going to add A with B. It's enough. Right? The software will take care of the job. No need to declare variable A, declare variable B, and how you are going to, what type of data that you are going to give. Don't worry about all those things. You are going to perform the process of addition. The software will take care of that thing. So likewise for functional, such type of logics will be splitted into n number of modules. A modular based approach will be followed in functional programming. You can find the NPTEL courses for doing these declarative programming language courses are available in your NPTEL. You can subscribe and you can do the course on that regarding Haskell, Erlang, and Prolog entries. Okay, so that's the thing regarding the classification of programming languages. So from this we are going to derive to the next level. So here, before getting into the programming, I want to talk about the development stage. In a software development life cycle, so initially we are having requirements gathering. So what are all the things necessary for my project that I need to collect? Next, I have to perform analysis. So what all the requirements are feasible to develop, what all the requirements are not feasible to develop, everything must be carried out. Second thing, after filtering the desired requirements, what are all the things can be customized as modules and can be made as a complete design, a prototype. So that is what design. So by seeing the design only, complete model will be built. That is what our implementation is, coding and implementation. Finally, I will test with my inputs. What are all the possible inputs the program can handle? What are all the possible inputs it cannot can handle? So those things will be performed. So finally, we'll go for deployment. That means in the customer base, I'm going to install my software. At last, maintenance. The software will go maintenance once it is going to be deployed in the customer base. So it will go for maintenance in the office, the place where we have developed. And if we found any bugs by default through internet, that I could able to rectify those bugs, and automatically an upgrade will be released in the web. Make sure that the client will access and install the upgraded software. This is the actual procedure of the software engineering, and that has been represented as software development lifecycle. So here I want to differentiate those things in terms of software engineering. What is the difference between structured programming language and object-oriented programming language? Here I'm going to talk about only imperative, right? So declarative will not come into our scope. We are going to talk about only imperative. So in the structured methodology that I'm going to follow, SDLC, software development lifecycle, so that it represents, it will come one phase to other phase. So what all the phases are there? Requirements gathering, analysis, design. So then we come for coding and implementation, testing. So finally we will fell into deployment and maintenance. So stage by stage it will come. That is what the SDLC. When we are coming for object oriented, iterative. Iterative means simpler modules will be designed. For every module, the same SDLC will be followed. Got it? For structured, for the entire project, they will follow a single cycle. But for object oriented, for all the modules, they will follow the same cycle iteratively or incrementally. Okay, for every module, they will follow that fashion. That's what object oriented. But I will again update you. Nowadays, this SDLC has been replaced. This iterative or incremental has been replaced. People started working on agile based environment, agile programming or agile development methodology. So you could able to check with that. So to simulate with it, so what is this agile technology under another thing? You can note down this word Jira. Okay, Jira. This Jira is a software released by TCS that you can access in TCS Ion website. Even you can register your course and you can do on your own. What is Jira? How these phases they are doing? How a team is formed? What is the procedure to divide a big project into small number of modules? Everything will be available interactively. No need of a teacher. You can self-learn on your own. They have given in very simple English. So you can complete and you can earn a certificate at a cost of 900 rupees alone. Okay. So such a easier one it is, right, to understand agile methodology. So how to do all these stages in this fashion. Okay. Next, we'll coming for focus. I will be concentrating more on procedures or processes. That is what structured. Okay, if I'm going to perform addition of two numbers means I'll be concentrating on that logic alone. While we are coming for object oriented, see whether my addition of two numbers will work for integer or float or any other data type, or if any real data types are going to come, how it is going to be handled. At a time, how many persons can access this program if I am going to install this program in the server. In that point of view, object oriented content will ready to view the project or the program. That's the thing. Next, they are using the term risk, the factor risk. It is high and it is low, right? The risk represents that they are talking about security. Okay, so structured programming means procedure. I can find the pattern how this program is working. For example, I am going to do something on a payment gateway. So if I have followed such type of structured programming means what would be the order that they will go for payment gateway, that can be tracked very easily. But while we are going for object oriented, the risk will be very, very low. I'll be telling you how it is. So in Java, we have a technology called EJB, Enterprise Java Wings. Screen design, that is what presentation. Logic, that is nothing but business logic. And the corresponding database, that will be separately available. So this is called the 3-layer or 3-tier, or still if you want to convey in a proper way, MVC, Model View Controller. Okay, so only design will be visible to you. The logic will not be visible towards you, where this logic is working. For example, you are doing reservation in IRCTC website. Do you know where this reservation logic will be available? It will be available in some railway server, but where it was available, we are having 13 different railways are available in India. So 13 sectors are available. So in that case, in which section that your reservation logic will be available, right? So where the server was. So you don't know, you could not able to track where the logic was available, reservation logic, cancellation logic, payment reversal logic, where these logics are being stored. So you could not be able to track it. Okay, track the place of logic. That's what the term they're talking about. The methodology here as the risk. Okay, so the risk is nothing but how could a black worker means could be a hacker, could be able to trace this logic. Okay, so that could be high and it could be low in oops. Reusability. I have developed an addition of two numbers program. How it can be reused, right? Might be people who have come across C and C++. I have wrote a program how I could be able to reuse it. You are having a storage class called external. Okay, using that you could be able to reuse it. But while we are coming for object-oriented programming, whatever that you are going to write, that can be reused using the concept of inheritance. So completely it can be reused. Okay, so that's the thing. Next, maturity. What does the term maturity is talking about? That means whether it was saturated or not. I think structured programming is being saturated. Your set-top box is being now completely saturated, right? When it will get to be still get to be upgraded when you are going for some other high resolutions, or when any such type of softwares are going to be altered in our satellite transponders, in that case it's going to move forward, because most of the set-top box softwares are written in C language only, because hardware interaction is very heavy. C is much more friendly for hardware. Okay, so that's the reason why still set-top box softwares are being enabled with the C only. But the object-oriented, we have started interacting with the hardwares nowadays only, because Android is making much more versions of that. Okay, so emerging from the basic version, KitKat and other things, that we are traveling. Still we are traveling, right? So there we don't have any pertainable features to move for that. So still we are traveling on it. Still research is there. That's what they are mentioning the term emerging. And so when the requirements will not change, in that case you can go for structured programming. So when requirements are changing here and there, now and then, on that case you have to choose object-oriented programming. So that has been given in this slide. Okay. So when requirements are not changed, for example, student management system, it is a project. So in that case, requirements will not be changed, because nothing will change. Only data may change. Student mobile number may be changed, but rest of the things, students admission, their personal data management, their unit test marks management, model exam marks management, university exam marks management, their placement activities, their curricular activities, their co-curricular and extracurricular activities. So everything will be the common one for all the thing, even though how many number of students are getting passed, getting moving out of the college, or based upon the students' movement, it will not change. Only the data will change, but the framework will not change. In that case, you can follow structured programming. But object-oriented programming, we don't know that. So what are all the things will change now and then? Best example is stock market. Okay, things will change rapidly now and then. So nowadays we are working with the lockdown, the coronavirus data. Day by day they are inventing some new factors which are responsible for that. So they are predicting, based upon this it is going to come, or based upon this it is going to come, or based upon these things it may cure or it may not cure. So likewise, day by day the parameters are being changing. In that case, I have to use object-oriented entity only. Okay, so that's a main difference that I want to convey here. So in a very clear fashion, till now we have discussed on that, but in a very clear fashion, it has been given as a table here. Procedural oriented programming and object oriented programming. So how we are going to differentiate? Even you can substitute the term, instead of procedural oriented, you can use structure oriented programming. Okay, so they are purely concentrating with the algorithms. Okay, but when we are coming for object oriented programming, we are going to work only with the data, right? So because logic and data will be separated here in object-oriented programming, but there both logic and data will be merged always. So it is purely based on functions in C and C++. But here, whatever the number of divisions that you can do, but using objects, I could able to access any function. So if I want a function to be accessed across all the programs, mandatorily it has to be declared as global. So using the feature of external, I could able to do this. Here, runtime memory allocation will decide which object need to access which function. So that's what they are going to discuss and declare over on that. In the runtime polymorphism, we will talk more about on that. Here, arguments will be passed through as a data. Here also it will ready to work, but here we could able to perform when it need to be passed, either during compile time or runtime. For that, we are having a concept called a binding, data binding. It's available here. Okay, so by actual arguments or formal arguments, data are being responsible to transfer from one place to other place. But here you could able to, by using the concept of data abstraction, you can hide the data, right? Procedure will be visible towards you, but you don't know what data is operating on that, how data is operating on that. You could not be able to move around that. Top-down approach, I could be able to come in a procedural way from the beginning to till end. But here they have mentioned as bottom approach. But that means it's not like you are going from result to aim. It's not like that. Okay, wherever you could able to start, you could able to end up. So there is no need to worry. Okay, for example, you are going to create a project. Module 1, Module 2, Module 3, Module 4. 4 modules are there. In procedural oriented or structure oriented, after completing Module 1, come for Module 2. After completing Module 2, come for Module 3. Likewise, it will come in a sequential way. But when you are coming for object-oriented programming, you can do it parallelly. Okay, and you can switch over from one module to another module at any time. That is what the term they are ready to convey about bottom-up approach. Okay, so memory constraint, they are talking about that it is very less. But here they are talking about much more. But I don't have I have a second thought on this, because memory constraint means when we are going to work with any devices, we could able to consider about that. But RAM, only by considering RAM on a local desktop or a laptop, we should not decide about that, because nowadays this memory also available as service through our AWS. Okay, so in that case, this point could not be a valid one. And we have some examples, C and Fortran. But we are coming for object-oriented programming, C++, Java, and .NET framework. And C++ could not be a pure object-oriented programming language. Still, they are using pointers. That's the reason why. And there is no classification of accessing the content. In the same program, these are all the contents are available by these people. Privileges. The privileges can be available in our object-oriented programming. We will see very detailedly on that. Already we have talked about the future of security in the previous slide itself. So overloading, that's an interesting thing on polymorphism. It's not available in procedural oriented, but here I could able to do that. A very simple plus operator could able to perform addition alone. But while we're coming for object-oriented programming, the same plus operator will perform the addition of two strings, string concatenation. Along with that, not only for this operator-based content, I could able to perform, objects can perform operations. Objects can perform operations. So that's also will come under the topic of overloading. So this could be the clarification on this. So these are all this is the complete mind map for your Java topics for your entire career, not only for this syllabus. Okay, for your entire career. I found this through Google, such an interesting one. While I'm coming across all those things, I could able to find out. See, start from the whoops. That could be the major criteria that we are going to work with in our syllabus. Threads, it is in our syllabus. Next, marker interface, it is regarding serialization and cloning, that is also available. Collections, nothing but the data structures that we are going to work with. Next, about JVM, this is also that we are going to discuss in the first unit regarding our memory management. Exceptions, that we are going to work with that. Next, string files and the XML, so that we will be viewing those things also. But XML that you will learn as service-oriented architecture as a separate subject in your 7th semester. But don't worry, that's also Java will have a role. Access specifier, that is what I'm talking about, this specifier and modifier regarding privileges. that we are going to discuss completely about on this. Java WE basics. That these are all the things that is being covered with your cloud computing and the service-oriented architecture. So, if you want to be a framework designer, you should be very good in Java WE basics and the content of XML and the other thing. Rest of the things are mandatory for any Java technology. Okay, rest of the things are mandatory for any Java technology. If you want to be a Java expert, you should be thorough with the 7 topics of the basic one. Remaining 3 topics are the advanced one. Okay, so this will give you the complete idea. So you can store this. I'll share this PPT in our Google Classroom. From this, you can take this image and you please preserve it with you. Better take a printout and paste it in your place where you will see regularly. Put a tick mark. These are all things you have learned or you are an expert in this. Likewise, mark yourself such that how good you are thorough in Java. That can be identified using this mind map. Okay. So for the purpose only, I have given this and narrating this also. And this is also a mind map that is ready to discuss about the OOPS concepts in a clear way. So OOPS languages, that what we have mentioned, Python, C++, Java, but object-oriented programming, how it was emerged based upon the concept of class and object. But what could be the idea behind that class and objects? That was completely abstracted. Okay, what about this abstraction? So we are going to discuss very detailedly on these individual topics, but this mind map will help you to understand about object orientation, because abstraction will hide everything. It will show you only the result. It don't show you input. It don't show you the procedure. It will show you only the output. Okay, it will hide everything. That's the nature of abstraction. That is the reason why under object oriented programming this abstraction was being fixed, such that even in OOPS concepts you could not be able to trace what was happening behind this operator. Okay, you could not be able to track any logic. That's the idea. So using classes, using objects, I could be able to access the contents of the classes. That is the reason why it has been marked as objects are instances of classes. Okay, so that's the thing. So by using objects, what you can access? You can access methods as well as data. Method plus data is going to give you the code ultimately. But using objects, I can access methods as well as data. That's the thing. So when it is going to combine, it is going to result you the process of encapsulation. The process of keeping data within the function is going to call as encapsulation. Okay. So for classes, I can create subclasses also. I can reuse the code also. That is what my inheritance is going to talk about. Multiple forms of code also I could be able to generate. That is what we are going to done through polymorphism. So only one thing it was not mentioned in this mind map is regarding OOPS features. Objects can communicate with the objects also. I think you could be able to mark here self curve on objects. Okay, that will start from objects and it will end with the objects also. Communication will happen there, because that is also one of the OOPS concept, message passing or message communication. So that will happen over there. So for all the OOPS concept, the underlying one is abstraction. Okay, so it will hide everything. So objects are used to access the contents of the class. What are the contents of the class? Methods and data. Methods and data will combine and will give you the code. Okay, what is encapsulation? The process of copying up method with the data. That's what my encapsulation is. Classes can have subclasses too. I could be able to reuse the class. That's what inheritance. I could be able to create multiple forms of the class. Simple. I'm writing a program that could be able to perform addition of 2 numbers. Number of that number will be an integer, or number will be a floating point, or number will be a double. It may be any data type. So single code will work on multiple type of data. That's what your polymorphism is. So all these features will come under the section of object-oriented programming. And these are all the features of Java. Object-oriented, but what we have seen till now in the previous mind map. Simple. What does what is the term that simple? Because the term why they are using here as a future is people who are coming from structured programming, they should not feel difficult. That's the reason why they are using the term simple. Okay, so everything will start from the main. That's the complete idea. Next one, secured. They are talking about this is secured, platform independent. These two terms are combined because while you are going to execute a Java program, you will get a class file. That class file is completely secured. Moreover, that class file could be able to operate on any operating system. For example, in Windows, you have created a Java program and you have run the program, file name.java. When you are going to run the program, it is going to generate file name.class. The file name.class generated in Windows will run in Ubuntu. The file name.class which is generated in Windows will run in Mac OS. The file name.java which was generated in Mac OS will run in some other Android OS. So likewise, the class file is completely platform independent. Okay, so that's the thing. Since we are all carrying over our mobile always with that, the apps are ready to download wherever that we need to work with. That's the term. The portable nature of apps are being derived only through the future of Java. Okay. Next one is robust. Robust means it could not be densely packed, right? It could be like plug and play. That's what the term robust. Architecture neutral. This is a term related to software engineering. Actually, 5 types of architecture will be available: function oriented, data centered. So likewise, it doesn't stick to any architecture. It is completely based upon the application based environment. So you can create for anything, right? For example, I want to create I want to create a software that need to control the emission of fumes in my two-wheeler. Okay, for that you can create that could be an application, right? That could manage with the device. Java need to talk with the hardware to do the job. That's the thing. Next, dynamic. Memory management is completely possible here dynamically. That's the idea. Interpreted. So, because the Java execution environment will stick to JVM. Part of JVM is Java compiler as well as Java interpreter. High performance. So, nothing but it could be able to work with all high-end applications. We will see all these points as chapters in the forthcoming units. Multi-threaded. Concurrent programming is possible, parallel processing. Function 1 and function 2 available in the same method will run parallelly. Distributed processing, the emergence of cloud computing, grid computing, everything could be possible from a basic Java application. It is ready to run on any environment. That is what the term distributed. The same thing has been given in some other way. The same features of Java. And this could be the history of Java that I want to talk about. 1995, the version was released. 20 years old. Recently, we have celebrated his birthday, Java's birthday. So, 23rd January, they released the first version of 1996. By 1997, Java 1.1 was released. See, what are all the features they are incorporating? See that JDBC was incorporated during 1997. It is useful for accessing the database from Java. Data structures are enabled in Java 1.2 collections during 1998 December. Right, so hardware-based things are being incorporated from 8th May 2000, Java 1.3. Interoperating with the XML, those features are being available from 2002. Okay, and other features which are responsible to communicate with the third-party vendors, third-party softwares. Those things are available from 2004. Okay, so plug and play policy of all the applications are being come to a single point. For example, now for Android TV, you could be able to plug your Android device. It is ready to play. That feature can be enabled from 2006 onwards. But now only we are getting and receiving as a products. Okay, some more additional exception handling features are introduced in 2011. 2014, they are released with Lambda functions that you may have come across in your Python, and other features like web server management that was being emerged from 2017. So inference types also being introduced in 2018. Some other advancements are being emerged in Lambda expressions from 2018 for the version Java 11. In Java 12, they could be able to see some interesting things on memory management. In Java 13, that it is ready to work with the cross-platform functionality. That's what 2019. So for 2020, we have a release. We'll get the update. So it's a time for discussion. If you have any doubts, please raise. You can type it in the chat, or you can open your mic and you can convey.